Authentic Leadership, Leading from True Self and Values by Bill George and other academic leadership researchers. Have you ever met a leader who looked impressive on the outside, spoke with confidence, used all the correct leadership language, and yet something about them felt disconnected? People listened, but they did not fully trust. People complied, but they did not feel inspired, because there is a major difference between performing leadership and embodying leadership. One is image, the other is identity. And in today's world, people can sense the difference almost immediately. Employees can feel when a leader is acting. Teams can feel when communication is polished but not genuine. Customers can feel when values are written on the wall but not lived in behavior. This is why many leaders struggle to build deep trust. They focus on appearing powerful instead of becoming grounded. They focus on external authority instead of internal alignment. But real leadership influence is never sustained by image alone. Eventually, character is revealed. Eventually, pressure exposes truth. Eventually, people discover whether the leader is authentic or artificial. This gave rise to authentic leadership, developed prominently by Bill George, with major contributions from Bruce Avolio, Fred Luthans, and other modern leadership researchers. This became known as the authentic leadership model, a leadership approach built on one powerful truth: the most trusted leaders are not the most polished, they are the most genuine. Let's break it down. The core idea: authentic leadership teaches that effective leadership begins from within, not from title, not from scripted charisma, not from management theatre, but from self-awareness, values, honesty, consistency, integrity, moral courage. It asks the leader to answer some uncomfortable but essential questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly stand for? What principles do I refuse to compromise under pressure? Because leaders who do not know themselves often lead from insecurity. They lead from ego. They lead from the need to be liked. They lead from fear of losing authority. And all of that creates unstable leadership. Authentic leaders are different. They lead from internal clarity. So what is the impact? When leadership is rooted internally, trust becomes externally visible. Self-awareness before authority. Bill George strongly argued that the journey to leading others begins with understanding oneself. This means knowing your strengths, your blind spots, your emotional triggers, your values, your fears, your motivations. Because if leaders are unaware of what drives them, their decisions become reactive. A leader who fears criticism may become controlling. A leader who craves approval may avoid difficult conversations. A leader driven by ego may reject feedback. But self-aware leaders can catch these patterns. They can regulate themselves before they damage the team. They can pause before reacting. They can choose principle over impulse. This creates maturity. So, what is the impact? Self-awareness produces emotional stability, and stability produces better leadership. Values-based decision-making. Authentic leaders do not change identity depending on the room they enter. They do not become ethical only when convenient. They do not become honest only when it is safe. Their values remain visible in decisions, communication, treatment of people, response to pressure, handling of conflict. This matters deeply because followers study consistency more than speeches. People ask silently, can I predict this leader's standards? Can I trust this leader under pressure? Will this leader protect values when shortcuts appear? When values are clear, people feel safe. When values constantly shift, people become cautious. And cautious teams never give full trust. So, what is the impact? Consistent values create psychological security. Relational transparency. Another major pillar of authentic leadership is relational transparency. This means leaders do not hide behind false perfection. They communicate honestly. They admit when situations are difficult. They acknowledge mistakes. They allow people to see the human side of leadership. Now, this does not mean oversharing everything. It means being truthful enough that people feel reality, not corporate performance. Because strangely enough, people do not expect leaders to be flawless, but they do expect them to be believable. A flawless image can feel distant. A transparent leader feels relatable, and relatability increases loyalty. So, what is the impact? Transparency turns authority into human connection. Internal moral compass. Authentic leadership also requires something many leaders lack: an internal moral compass. Because leadership pressure often tempts compromise, pressure to hit targets, pressure to impress shareholders, pressure to avoid criticism, pressure to protect reputation. Under this pressure, some leaders bend ethics. They manipulate numbers, they hide truths, they shift blame. Authentic leaders ask, is this right, even if it is hard? That internal compass becomes a stabilizer. It keeps leadership clean under pressure. So, what is the impact? Values. Prevent short-term success from destroying long-term trust. Why this model matters today. Think about the modern workplace. People are exhausted by empty corporate slogans, performative leadership speeches, leaders saying one thing and doing another public image with private inconsistency. Employees today are more observant. Customers are more skeptical. Audiences are quicker to detect hypocrisy. This means polished leadership branding is no longer enough. Today, people ask, is this leader real? Do they mean what they say? Can they be trusted when things get hard? That is why authentic leadership matters more now than ever, because trust has become a rare currency. So, what is the impact? Authenticity is now a leadership advantage, not just a personal trait. Real workplace example. Imagine an organization facing serious restructuring. Rumors spread, staff fear layoffs, uncertainty rises. One executive sends carefully worded generic emails. We appreciate your patience during this transition, but offers no honesty, no visibility, no direct answers. Trust drops quickly, employees speculate, anxiety spreads. Now imagine another leader. They gather the team. They say, this is a difficult period. Some decisions are still being made. I will tell you what I know, what I do not know, and how we will move through this together. Immediately, the emotional atmosphere changes. The problem has not disappeared, but trust has increased. Why? Because people can handle hard truth better than vague pretense. That is authentic leadership in action. Advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. Builds deep trust, creates long-term credibility, increases employee loyalty, supports ethical decisions, improves team engagement, creates stronger leader-follower connection. Disadvantages. Requires high self-reflection, can feel vulnerable. Honesty must be balanced with strategy. Not all organizational cultures encourage openness. Authenticity takes time. It cannot be faked quickly. Where you see this today. Authentic leadership is used heavily in values-driven companies, executive coaching, trust, rebuilding programs, people-first organizations, ethical leadership development, modern culture transformation. Anywhere trust, credibility, and long-term loyalty matter, authentic leadership becomes highly relevant. So what is the impact? People stay longer with leaders they believe. Key insight. Bill George taught us something profoundly important. People may follow position for a while, but they follow character for the long term, because titles can command compliance, but authenticity commands belief, and belief is what holds teams together when difficulty appears. So the real leadership question becomes, are you trying to manage your leadership image or strengthen your leadership substance? because one impresses temporarily, the other endures permanently. So ask yourself, if your title disappeared tomorrow, would people still trust your leadership? Take a moment, pause and reflect. Grab a pen, pencil it down. One core value you want every person to feel when they experience your leadership, because authentic leadership begins where imitation ends. I hope this brought value to you, and I'm wishing you abundant success. Take a moment, pause for thought. What would you like to learn and explore next?